experience in this area, and should we be doing more? And what can you do as a small to medium enterprise owner in terms of if you're working on ladders, you're working at height, or you're a painting decorator or a roofer? What can you do better? Is there stuff out there that you need to know? And should you be plugging yourself into some of the organizations that Peter is involved in order to upskill yourself to stay ahead of this? Because, as we all know, it's a very serious part of your operations as a construction owner. Peter, welcome to the show. Eventually, I'm sorry for.
Thanks for having me, Gavin. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're going to get this clear, as we said in the pre-chat chat. I'm from Ireland, and Peter's from Scotland. So if you don't understand Scottish or Irish accents, it's probably a good time to turn off the.
I'll get your text box on.
we can transcribe it later on if that's what you want. Just throw it in the comments. Peter, an amazing background, amazing amount of experience. Just give us a sort of a general overview of how you got involved into this whole area of work at height.
I got involved in work at height. I didn't know it was work at height at the time. We didn't call it work at height at that time. But I got involved in scaffolding at I was going to say a very early age. I wasn't that young, but it's a good 45 years ago. And I started with a company called Stevens and Carter. Stevens and Carter had a depot just near the skirts of Glasgow, and they were a really long-established scaffolding organisation, 125 years old at that time. They covered everything from tube and fitting scaffolding, system scaffold, tower scaffolds, ladders, step ladders, the whole range of work at height equipment. And I was there for a few years, and I moved from the Glasgow depot to the Edinburgh depot, and then at a very early stage, the very opening stages of powered access, I actually moved into powered access with a company called High Work Platforms, part of the Vibro plant. And I'd say that was at very early formative years of the power access sector. From that organisation, went back to Stevens and Carter again, set up their power access division, and latterly in my sort of working in the real world, I ended up with a company called Turner Access, which is a Glasgow-based company, and they were part of the Turner Group, which again had quite a wide range of interest, but one of it was Turner Access, and again, same story there. They manufactured towers, they manufactured system scaffold, we had a rental division, we had a contracts division, and we latterly added to it a powered access division. And it was at that time, and I have to take my hat off to that organisation, because they were very forward thinking, and they were very forward thinking in terms of, like, if we make a living in a sector, if we make money, if we make profit in a industry sector, we should put something back to it. And so they actively encouraged us to get involved in trade associations. And at that time is when I got involved with IPAF, and I later went on to chair the training committee of IPAF, and latterly became the president of IPAF. The same is the case with PASMA, the towers, the lead industry body for tower scaffolds. I got involved in them as a council member, latterly became the chair of the association, and thereafter joined them as an employee, as the managing director, and I've been there for the last 20 odd years.
Wow.
Or I've been here for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah, so just what's the difference between PASMA and IPAF, just for the general person listening that might not be aware?
Not a problem. So, as well as those other things that you mentioned there, I also chair an organisation called the Access Industry Forum. The Access Industry Forum is a UK organisation that encompasses all of the work at height disciplines. In there, you've got Atlas, who are the steeplejacks organisation. You've got EPF, the Edge Protection Federation. You've got FACET, who are the safety net people. You've got IPAF, I'll come back to that in a little minute. You've got Errata, who are the rope access people. You've got the Ladder Association. You've got the NASC, who are the scaffolding organisation. You've got PASMA, who's a tower, mobile access tower organisation. You've got SEMA, who are suspended platforms, cradles and all that sort of stuff. Then you've got WASA, who are the which got safety harnesses, safety lines, all that sort of stuff. So PASMA focus and have specialisation and subject matter expertise is in tower scaffolding and mobile access towers. IPAF is specialising and subject matter expertise in powered access. So that's scissor lifts, boom lifts, lower mounted platforms, mast climbing platforms, all of those things where you press a button and it goes up and comes back down. That's the difference.
Okay, so you telling me that is there a group that has all of these organisations within the one group? Because I wasn't aware of that.
Well, the Access Industry Forum is what we refer to as an umbrella organisation, so that it kind of pulls those organisations together who are all independent and are fiercely independent, let me tell you. But the AIF acts as I say, an umbrella body that allows, for instance, regulators to speak to one organisation rather than speak to 10 organisations.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's been there for, in actual fact. The work height regulations were enacted in the United Kingdom in 2005, and they were an enactment of the Temporary Worker Height Directive, which came from the European Union. And I think Ireland, they were maybe about a year or so after that, but around about the same time, we enacted pretty much the same regulations, and that has been quite a game changer in respect of working at height. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if you want me to go back to it or if you're maybe going to ask me, but I remember I was speaking to someone. In fact, the PASMA organisation was 50 years old last year. Was it last year? No, it wasn't. It was 2 years ago. And we had quite a lot of events. One of the events that we had was we gathered together all of our past chairmen. And one of the past chairmen that was there, I mean, there were some really quite heartbreaking stories in there, and maybe we'll talk about them another time. But one of the past chairmen had said to me, and I never knew this, he had said, look, do you know, this industry and the whole of industry has come such a distance. He said, you know, when I first got involved in Stevens and Cartway back in the day, and they introduced the Health and Safety Work Act, the number of fatal falls was 40 times what it is today. 40 times. And I thought, I never knew that. I never knew it was as high as that. He said, no, absolutely, 40 times what it is nowadays.
Wow.
And again, I mean, even though it's 40 times, and that's flaming terrible, we've done very, without doubt, we've done very well to reduce it and to do better. And I have to be honest and say that certainly, as far as I'm aware, GB in the UK are at the forefront of, doing good stuff in respect of working at height, and we generally are held up as an exemplar for other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But even at that, we're still seeing, certainly with my No Falls Foundation hat on, there's still too many. There's still too many people are killed. I think I maybe gave you a number before. We just had the HSE stats, fatalities released this morning. We're down a little bit in the previous year, but I've not had time to look at them in any detail. But just to put that into context, in the last year, so 2024, 25, 35 people died as a result of a fall from height. In the last 10 years, 361 to be exact, killed in the last 10 years. That there is enough to fill a jumbo jet. If you look at it from the point of view of non-fatal falls, numbers are frightening. 44,000 in the last year alone. Take that over 10 years, and you've got 400. Yep. Take that over the last 10 years, you've got 425,000 injured non-fatal falls from height in GB only. Now, again, it's not peculiar to UK or GB. I know that certainly I had a wee look because I was coming on here to look. Health and Safety Authority has published some numbers in respect of Ireland. They've got some big numbers as well. Not as big as that, but then obviously proportionately the population's not quite as big. But just looking at that over a 10-year period, what was they saying? 68 fatalities in the construction industry as a result of fall from height. That's from the Health and Safety Authority in Ireland. So it's not, as I said, it's not just, it's not, we know in every country throughout the world, falls from height, generally, not always, but generally way up there. In our case, #1 cause of falls, cause of fatalities. In a lot of the developed countries, #1 cause of fatalities. And it's just like, we need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah, like just for clarification and definition purposes,
Yep.
slips, trips, and falls into the category of
Nope.
no. So let's just nail that then, yeah.
Correct. So slips, trips, and falls are on the same level. Slips, trips, and falls on the same level. Totally different thing. And there's that the numbers there are horrific. But let me put this to you, and I think I've maybe said this to you before. There is a difference. The difference is in non-fatal accidents involving falls from height, they tend to be rather more serious than other non-fatal incidents. It tends to be there's a much higher proportion of the people who have a non-fatal fall from height that it's going to be life-changing, and that they're either not going to go back to work, or they're certainly not going to go back to work in the position or doing the stuff they've done before.
Wow. Wow.
And that number I gave you for the last 10 years, well, 425,000 people have been injured. There is going to be a whole load of those who have not been able to go back to work. They've maybe gone back to work, and they've gone back to work in a lower, in a sort of a lower position, a less strenuous position.
Yeah.
And I do see this quite often because obviously I come from a scaffolding background. Virtually every scaffolding yard you would go into, there's some wee guy in there who wanders about with a limp. And that's the boy, that's wee Jimmy or wee Frankie or wee Paddy or whatever his name is, who used to be a scaffolder. He fell off, hurt his leg, and he can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And loads of places have got that. Loads of places have got that individual who was fortunate not to be killed, but they never go back to what they've done before.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to say as well, just in relation to that, is those 425,000 people, and okay, it's not going to be all of them, but they are, in the nicest possible, they're a burden on society. Society's got to keep paying for them. Society's got to keep them supported. And we could avoid that if we just stop at them in the first place.
So there must be something structurally wrong with how we're still set up as an enterprise, as a construction enterprise business. And I'm not saying it's a tier 1 issue, I'm saying across the board. I know it's a very broad statement, but like, it's an epidemic.
Well, do you know, there are some other trends, and it's difficult to know exactly, put your finger exactly on it. But there are some other trends in there in these statistics, and again, we see this all the time. Like, those are numbers, and they're terrible numbers.
Yeah.
But every number there is a person, and every person's got a family, and every person's got workmates that had to see that accident, had to actually see how horrible it was.
Yeah.
So the ripple effect is enormous. And, one of our ambassadors is a guy called Jason Anker, MBE, and you've probably seen some of his talks. They're very powerful.
Yeah.
And I know that we, via the auspices of Ladder Association, said, you know what, Jason, the story you tell is very powerful, but we also want to hear the story of what's the ripple effect on the following generations. So if you ever get an opportunity, have a look on the Ladder Association website, and there's a video there, which is Abby's story. And I think we got it on the No Falls Foundation as well. And Abby is Jason's daughter, and she explains how it affected her, how it affected her life, how it affected the fact that she couldn't be walking down the aisle, how it affects her.
I've
seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Yeah.
It is.
There's I'm not name dropping here, but I'll name drop ArcelorMittal, the very large steel manufacturing company. They produced a fantastic video as well that they put online, which was from their French division, where they had kids in a primary school.
Yep.
They spoke about health and safety with the kids in the primary school, and they asked them about what things that they did, that their fathers did if they were in construction, what kind of things they did in terms of that worried the kids in terms of health and safety.
Sure.
And again, it was very powerful. Like daddy leaves the house without his hard hat on a regular occasion. Or, there's like, it's a, people don't really think, I suppose we don't stop and think about our loved ones when we leave the door and go out to construction. That there is, your family are genuinely worried. And like this, from a young, I'm talking about primary school kids, like 7, 8 years of age. And it was very powerful, very, very
Correct.
powerful.
Correct.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was involved with, I think I told you this, in the very early days when I got involved with health and safety. I was involved with a fatality on site where a young guy tripped over a handrail that had been removed. We never found why or whatever else, and he fell headfirst into a sump. And I went in the ambulance with him, and he died 2 days later. And it, like, I didn't get any counselling for it. The site didn't get any counselling for it. The site manager was never the same person again. I did have occasion to meet that guy's brother, who was on site the same day, and I've met him a couple of times on different sites after that. And like the trauma, the ripple trauma from that event sticks with me today. And obviously it's a story that I could share with other people to try and sort of drive home the message of why we're doing this. But I do think there is, rather than narrowing the story to the victim, there is a wider trauma that needs to be explored as well. I think I'm glad you brought that up.
I'll tell you, just in relation to that, we're saying just now, one of the things, or a very powerful way to bring this home to people, is to tell stories, to tell this happened to somebody, and it's a person, somebody like you, who went out one day and they went to their work and they fully intended to come back in one piece, but what happened was they done this, or they done that, or they didn't do this quite right, or they weren't thinking, and bang, it's happened just like that.
Mm. I'm going to throw a curveball at you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you think the barrier to entry is too low into construction, which might be an indicator of where the problem is?
I don't know that that's the issue at all. I think, and I should say that this is my educated guess, that because I don't have any empirical data to prove this. In fact, this is one of our ongoing calls to government, that we actually need to get better at gathering the information, gathering the data that would point us in the direction of where do we need to put the effort and the resource.
Yeah.
I've long since said that one of the biggest barriers that we've got, well, there's probably two extremes. On the one hand, the novice who comes into the construction industry and does not recognise danger, right? That's a big problem, because they don't recognise that there is a risk there.
Yeah.
And at the other end, and probably more concerning, is those they've done it, they've got the T-shirt, they've been doing it for years, and they become totally inured to the danger. They've done it so often that they don't have a fear of height. Height doesn't bother them at all. And partly what reinforces that is this perception of, done it for so long and nothing's happened, so why is it why is it going to happen now? And again, my contention is, look, okay, you've done it so long and nothing's happened, your luck's running out. And funnily enough, and I'm not saying that there's necessarily a cause and effect to this, but there is definitely there's a disproportionate number of over 55s who have fatal falls from height, in comparison to the number of over 55s who are in the workforce. And I don't know the reason for that, but as I say, that could well be one of the causal factors. Other things could be the fact that, when you're a bit older, your reactions are not quite as good, your reflexes are not quite as quick, and you just, you don't. Somebody said before, you don't bounce as well, which is, I suppose, something to take into account. I'll take that into account in the next time. But
Um,
seriously, what you find is people who do it all the time, they become inured to it. I mean, we have it's a natural instinct that we have a fear of unprotected edges, and that goes
yeah,
back to primeval days where, if I go over that cliff, there's going to be no one there to provide for my family. So
yeah,
you needed to be careful. So that natural instinct is there for us to be uncomfortable at unprotected edges, but that you overcome that when you get used to it, and when you then as I say, you become inured to it and you don't see the danger, and that is, without doubt in my mind, that's part of it.
yeah. I think the interaction between the work environment being work at height
Mhm.
and and um, the general person, it's how do I put it? I have a picture in my mind. I watched a YouTube clip the other day. Crib Gotch in Wales is
Mhm.
one of the most dangerous mountain regions
Yep.
in the UK. You're probably aware of it. And there's a thing called the knife edge on it, and there's a plenty of videos of where people have lost their lives from going up there and sort of
Mhm.
like not being aware of their surroundings, not knowing it's as dangerous as it is, not taking into consideration the weather conditions could change very quickly and all this kind of stuff. And then I see this video of a guy that's absolutely nearly crying with terror, like grown man with his wife, and the wife is saying, you'll be grand, come on." I'm going, like it's a knife edge, like it's either
Mhm.
boom or
Yes.
boom. You're gone either way. And he's like,
Yep.
I agree with him. He's saddling the knife edge. He's
Mhm.
basically, he's not even, he won't stand.
Mhm.
He's standing, no problem. And he's crawling on the knife edge, right? And next thing, he's freaked out because there's a couple of people coming behind him.
Yep.
He's got like, oh my god, how am I going to let these people by? And she's like,
Mhm.
come on over here. There's a small bit of space here. So eventually, he crawls to that space on top of the mountain, on
Mhm.
top of the ridge. This guy walks down or walks close to them, standing, walking, no problem. Are you okay, pal? Blah blah blah. And he's putting his hand on him, and my hand's like, shaking and whatever else. And next thing, his two kids who are like 7 years of age and maybe 9 years of age walk around the guy as well, standing, and they're taking the pack off there. And look on top of Crib Gotch, right? And your man's there saying, "Oh, look, you'll be fine. It's a lovely mountain." And I'm going, "Oh my good God, what the hell?" Right? Like, I knew I was coming on with this podcast. And I was saying, like, there's sort of there's a sort of example of where we're at. Is that some people just don't see risk
Do you
at the
know?
same level as
Do
other
you,
people.
do you know what? I'll tell you a story, right? And this story is related to something similar to that. Many, many moons ago, we used to, when we were doing tower training, and I remember specifically we used to see this. Right, so when you're building the tower, what you want to do is, uh, when you climb up the tower, you wrap your leg through the tower, the cross member, and you lock your foot on the cross member below, and that's a very, 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 very secure means of determining that you're able to deal with, platforms being lifted up and all that sort of stuff. This isn't that long ago. This is not that long. This is not that long ago. This is prior to working regulations, so say, but 20 years, 20 plus years ago. And when we look at that now, honest to God, we cringe. We think, why did we ever think that was all right? And I used to say, and I remember, because I used to be a plasma instructor as well, and maybe not be surprised, And I remember specifically saying to people, and it sounded very sensible. Now, when you get to the platform position, so you're up 30 feet up in the air, you go to platforms in position. Now, remember, when you're on that platform, what you want to do is you want to sit or kneel down to lower your centre of gravity, right? Now, as I say, it sounds very sound advice, but we look at that now and we're absolutely cringe at the prospect of that person is 30 feet up in the air and no means of preventing or protecting from distancing consequences of
No.
fall. And the next story I'm going to tell you is way back in the day, just before the workout regulations were enacted. I was on an exhibition stand. I think it might have been Hyrex or something like that. And chappie from HSE came up. I'll never forget him. His name was Martin Holden. And Martin Holden said to me, "We need to speak." I said, "Fine, okay. So what do we need to speak? We need to speak about? We need to speak about falls from height and preventing falls from height in towers." I said, "Fine, okay." He said, "Because the workout regulations are coming out, and I can tell you that we will need to talk about how people are prevented from falling while the towers are being built." And I remember thinking to myself, what sort of nonsense are you talking about? Hey, when a tower is finished and it's in a finished position, it provides complete collective fall prevention. It's got a guardrail around it, absolutely spot on, just what you need. But to get the guardrail there, sure, somebody has to, for a very brief period of time, got to be at risk of fall till they put the guardrail on. And how can that be different?
Yeah.
Well, it took us a while to get our heads around about it. It did take us a while to get our heads around about it. But when the challenge was set to say, you need to come up with a solution, there is a solution there, you need to come up with it. You need to put your mind to what is the solution. And we did. We came up with advanced guardrails, and those advanced guardrails, as well as the 3T method, as we call it, through the trap, what they done was they made sure that before you stand on the platform, a guardrail's already in place.
Yeah.
And we would never have done that had the challenge not come to us from Health and Safety Executive to say that there, somebody can fall from there while they're building it. And as far as we're concerned, that will be a work at height. And if somebody falls, then we want to know why that happened.
Yeah.
But as I say, unless we had the challenge, never have been done, we'd never come up with that solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking of the amount of times, because I worked in the fit out industry, and I'm thinking as well the amount of times we would see guys just pulling themselves along with the lay-in grid ceiling or with the services and stuff like that, rather than getting down off the scaffold and sort of mobile scaffolds pushing it along the right way. And then obviously you have
see them all of 2 minutes.
Sorry?
I say because it will save them all of 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's still that hasn't changed in the like 30 years, 25 years I'm going around sites. That has not changed.
So I'll tell you the next story. Right, the next story relates to something similar, and it relates to that too. So workout regulations come in, and quite a few construction contractors, tier one contractors, I think, oh, how are we going to deal with this? So one of the things that they deal with, you may recall, fit out contractors in Israel, absolutely site littered with step ladders, absolutely covered in them, step ladders. Tier one contractors, oh my lord, what are we going to do with that? Right, okay, somebody comes up with that. What about these little podium steps? I've seen them, somebody's got them.
Very heavy. Very
I kid you not, those podium steps had been about for years, but nobody had ever used them. Then somebody says that could be just a thing for us. So all of a sudden, we get every manufacturer getting into their drawings, blowing the dust off these designs to say podiums, that's the way to go. Could not make enough of them. Podiums everywhere. Now, we say this quite often. Look, you need to be very careful what you wish for, because in trying to resolve one problem, sometimes you create another problem. And that is exactly what happened. It has unintended consequences. You transfer the risk from one place to another place. And what happened in respect of the use of podiums was, yes, on the surface, it looked like that is a much better option because you're on a platform. It's a platform you're standing on. You've got a guardrail around about you. You've got fall prevention there. Well, that's much better. Then I got a call from, in fact, I had a meeting with a guy who was health and safety. He was actually a consultant, and he was a consultant for the Department of Works and Pensions. And he said to me, listen, Peter, we have got an issue here. And the issue is, we reckon we're probably the biggest construction client in the UK at the moment for whatever it was they were doing. And we've got from our sites, we're getting reports of quite a lot of incidents involving these podiums. And if we were to take the number of incidents that we've got in comparison to the number of construction projects we've got and extrapolate that over the whole of the country, you're talking about a whole load of incidents here. We're going to look at it, and what it comes down to is just what you said, talking about before. They've got wheels on them. So people use them for pulling along, surfing, they call it. Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing, because the use of these had been, it just appeared from nowhere. The standards had not kept up with it. So there was no product standard for it. So what you've got is all these manufacturers making something that looks the part and the rest of it. But when we look at its resistance to overturning, not very good. Right? So of course, when people are standing on it and it's got a guardrail now, all of a suddenly, where they realise the limitation of the steps, you can't really lean out that far because you're going to fall. If you've got a guardrail, though, you can lean out quite a bit, and that works. But then, of course, that then becomes a lever arm, and they were falling over.
And we had tier one companies that had a policy.
Yep.
That's ladders was banned.
Correct. Aye. If in doubt about how you're going to control risk, just ban it. It'll make it go away.
It's just like I remember saying to a tier one contractor at the time, because their client had brought on ladders, and they were like, no ladders here. And I said, well, that's no problem. We didn't know that was your policy, but if you've got a risk assessment that says that our guys don't need to use ladders, give us a look at the risk assessment, and we'll try and incorporate it into our methodologies, if you like. And no, you're the specialist. Yeah, we're the specialist, and we've been doing it for the last 40 years.
Yes.
And they didn't use scaffolding and stuff like that. Like, they've used ladders. So, well, he said, you can't use ladders here. But I said, you can't tell us.
Well,
I'm surprised I'm surprised that they weren't pulled into court over that.
To be fair as well, Gavin, we've had a situation like that too, and you can't. I kind of get it. I kind of understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. As I look at it from the point of view of, look, you're not improving your safety culture by telling people what they've got to do. Right? The only way you're going to improve your safety culture is to explain to people how do you assess the risk and how do you determine what's the best equipment to use for this on this occasion. If you take all that away from them and you prescribe what they've got to do, and all you're going to have is you're going to have a whole load of robots who do exactly what you tell them. And when it doesn't make any sense, because they're not paid to think, when it does not make any sense, they're going to come back to you and say, well, you told me I was to do that, so I done it.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, you teach them and you educate them to say, look at what you've got to do, look at the job, look at how long is it going to take you, what's the risk involved in it, is it low risk, is it short duration, put a ladder up, get it done and get away again. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still have to be convinced either way. Like, I'm putting the practical commercial hat on me, but I'm also putting my safety hat on me. If the guy knows what he's doing, if he's experienced, if she's been doing it for whatever amount of years, and the equipment is fit for purpose.
Well, when we go back to that situation you spoke about before with podiums or pool pits, whatever they call them, they had all different sort of names at the time. We had to move very, very quickly, and we did. We'd spoken to our guys at DWP. We spoke to a few of the tier one contractors, and the first thing we said is we need to develop some training to tell people these are the things you need to look out for, and don't do this and don't do that and do this and do that and other things. We produced a DVD within a very short period of time that you could just put on in the site workshop or whatever. And then the next thing we done was we moved very, very quickly to get a standard. And how we done it is there's a fast track method to getting a standard. That means you don't need to go through all the stuff that you normally do. Because I don't know if you've been involved in standards work, but it is absolutely excruciatingly slow. We had to pay money for it. We had to pay BSI to get what they call a PAS, publicly available specification. Got to go through the same process, get everybody, all the stakeholders involved in it, and we very, very quickly come up with a PAS 250 that covered how are these to be designed. And again, when you go to that, you start to kind of apply a logic to it, and you say to manufacturers who are involved in it, well, look, guys, are you going to try and convince us? No. you cannot convince us that the resistance to overturning on this wee thing should be less than that thing, right? Because they're both going to do as much damage, right? So this should be able to perform at least as well as that thing, right? And for you to do that, you then need to think about how are you going to have to design it to do that. And
Yeah.
then the other thing that we've done was just what you said there as well. Part of that standard was there needs to be a means to prevent people surfing. You need to make it so they can do that. And again, like all of these things, you think, how can we do that? Yes, you can. If somebody says you need to come up with a way of doing it, you can come up with it. And one of
Yeah.
the ways to do it is you make it, it's only got two wheels. The front two are base plates, or the front two are static, so you cannot make it surf. The only way you can move it is get down and move it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that, actually. Remember that document coming out.
There you go.
So, like, what we've covered in a very short space of time, for anybody that was able to understand the language that we were using,
It was really good. If you could understand it.
was we've covered behavioural. So we've touched off behaviour a little bit. We've touched off competency a little bit. Now you're after bringing in design and manufacture a little bit. We've touched off, I suppose, fit for purpose. Maybe another area we could go into is resources and people's, ability to price job correctly and price work at height into the job.
I I don't know if I've spoken to you about it before, but I've spoken to a few other people about it before, where I've said, you say that you've trained your people, you say that you've given them all the tools that they need, and that when something's gone wrong, you can't understand why it's gone wrong. And one case in particular, I remember saying to somebody, look, you're saying that you've told these people and you've explained to them how they can do all this stuff and you give them all the training and all the rest of it. And then you put them in a van and you send them up to do a repair 200 miles away with this van. And on that van, he's got two ladders on a roof rack. You can bet your bottom dollar that when he turns up there, one of those ladders is what he's going to use to get there. And the reason for that is because you do not give him the resource that he needs to be able to step back, assess the job, see what needs to be done, and decide on the best method of attaining that. And I suppose that kind of goes back to some of the stuff we hear pretty regularly from health and safety executive or health and safety professionals, and that is planning is not as good as it should be. So much of, and I get really annoyed about this, so much of the planning, so much of the even the design, if I can put it like that, is left to the poor guy at the sharp end. The poor
Yeah,
guy at the sharp end is having to work out, how am I going to do this? How
yeah,
am I best going to get this job done? And how am I going to make what I've got do what I need to do? And then people complain because they didn't do what you trained them to do. Well, they didn't do what you trained them to do because you didn't give them the resource. Easy as that. You should have sent somebody out before it to check it out and see, what is this job? How are we going to do it? How's the best way to do it? And then plan it from there, so that by the time the person gets to it, they know they know what they're walking into. They've got it's all been worked out.
but we don't, in the procurement process, for definite. The
Hmm.
question is not asked. Have you priced in work at height and accessibility to height within your tender?
Hmm.
Now, I know most people just go, "Yeah, I did." Like,
I,
how can
it's a
you?
dark art, I have to say, for quantity surveyors and all that. I'm sure there must be some method to it, but I also I'm pretty clear, or I'm pretty sure that they build in a percentage. So much if you in a percentage for access. They'll work out the detail when they get to it. Do you know what I mean?
No, but like we on the podcast there, that the show will come out in the next couple of weeks. A different podcast I done
Mhm.
with a mass climbing company,
All right.
and
Mhm.
obviously he was self-serving because they sell mass climbers.
Of course.
But like the theory and the efficiency of those is like, I don't see a reason why you couldn't use them. Now we did speak about where
Mm.
there has been issues with two drives and all this kind of stuff, and it'll come out on the show. But like, I was sitting there going, yeah, no brainer, no brainer.
So what you find quite often, Gavin, and I mean, if you look at that, you can see it, but on my screen I can see the range of organisations who are involved in accessing the forum, and we do say, look, nobody's got a, nobody's got a monopoly on the right answer. Any job you've got, probably 3 of those, 4 of those could come up with a solution.
Yeah.
They might not be the best solution, and it's then up to you to say, well, what are my options? I could use this, I could use that, I could use this, I could use this one. There are cost implications for that. There are time implications for that one. That this one here is going to be, much more efficient or much safer or whatever there is. And then you've got balance to say, right, well, which is the best option for this job? Because there is no doubt about it, there will be lots of jobs where mass climbing work platforms will be absolutely ideal. And there are ones where you could say that is definitely crying out for a mass climbing work platform. But somebody, somewhere, for instance, would say, well, I've got a scaffolding contractor I use, and they scaffold up the whole building. And maybe for what they're doing, maybe they've got a lot of stuff to do at different levels, and then it makes sense for them to do that. But then maybe if it's a if they're working on a tier basis, taking down a tier at a time or putting a tier up at a time, then it makes sense for them to use mass climbing work platforms. The thing is that, as I say, in all of those situations, there's probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 competing work at height methods that could be used, and it's a case of working out what's the best one.
Yeah, he did say, in fairness to him, he did say, like, the efficiency of their business doesn't kick in until about 6 floors high.
Yeah.
So, like he wasn't shunning. He said, look, scaffolding can live with the mass climber.
Well, I'll give an example. When I first got involved in Power Access, we had a real job trying to persuade people that it was worth paying the money. It was worth paying the extra amount of money. And bear in mind, I'm coming from a tower background, so loads of the stuff that had been getting done on site was all been done for mobile access towers. I can tell you that whole thing has shifted now. And it has shifted because, first of all, the cost of mobile elevator work platforms has come down. Scissor lifters, cheapest chips, and the labour costs have gone up. And then all of a sudden, that balance between, hold on a wee second, I pay that for a tower, and that tower's going to have to be assembled and all the rest of it, and I've got to get up and down it. Whereas if I get a scissors, my guys can get that done quicker. So I'm going to go for that. It's horses for courses.
Yeah.
And the job of each of the organisations and each of the companies is to try and explain to you as best they can, go for my method because my method's going to be the best one for this job. But you pay your money and you take your choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was part of another fatality where the guy fell through a roof, and I had advised the clients to put me in touch with the company because they were a logistics company and they were under pressure to get this roof work done because it was coming up to Christmas and there was a lot of product in the warehouse. So I said, look, don't do anything until I see the paperwork. So I said, look, send me on the guy's paperwork. And they said, oh, Gavin, you wouldn't believe it. He's no paperwork, blah, blah, blah. I can just imagine him being on a rickety old ladder trying to get the work done. And it's kind of like an email, kind of like joke about not using them. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. And it was just all hell broken loose on the phone call. It was like, Gavin, we got a man down. What's going on? So they went ahead and used them. Now your man, the guy had a roofing business. He had a roof repair business. But again, back to resources and back to selection and procurement and design and, selection of equipment fit for purpose. Like, all the red flags were there, but the client decided to take it into their own hands to go ahead and use the person because that's it's been cheapest price and whatever else. And we all get into this conversation of,
I don't know if I said to you, Gavin, but started last week. I think it was started last week. Yeah, started last week. I attended a fatal accident inquiry, and this fatal accident inquiry was in Scotland, and it was 6 fatalities. Now, not for construction, but from the next biggest cause, agriculture.
Agriculture, yeah.
Agriculture.
Yeah.
Now, we had been involved with it. In Scotland, we have a separate setup. So we have the Procurator Fiscal Service. So it's Crown Office Procurator Fiscal Service. And we'd been in contact with Procurator Fiscal to say, listen, first of all, can we congratulate you in saying take the 6 cases at once? Because this is what we see too often. They take one case at a time and say, "Oh, that's terrible. This poor guy fell through a roof, and something should be done about it." But look, the reality is, and when they put the 6 cases together and you looked at the circumstances, there was such a thread of commonality between them that it made perfect sense to say, take these together and see what can we learn for this. And to be honest, you look at it and you think, it's a big mountain we're trying to climb,
Yeah.
because in these circumstances, and again, I know I've said this to others as well, construction, they've got their problems, without doubt, they've got their problems. But when you go to tier 1 and tier 2 contractors and the subcontractors they bring on, they're pretty switched on. They know what
Yeah.
the issues are and they've got systems in place. When you go to agriculture, when you go to farms,
Yeah.
honest to God, you know, even the organisation that are in there, well, somebody said to me, why are they still building? Why are they still building structures with fragile roofs on them? Why? There's no need to do that. So virtually every one of the cases we're talking about, the farmer, generally over 60 years old, working himself, fell through a roof or a skylight. And you look at it and you think, well, why were you there in the first place? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And why did, like, go back to stuff we said before? I know we have an ongoing debate with our colleagues in the agricultural, the architectural profession, to say you could design so much of this out. If
Yeah.
you guys would look at it from the point of view of you're the first port of call, you're the first line of defence, design the stuff out.
Yeah.
Design it so that people don't need to go up there. You could do that, and you could do it very easily. You just need to get that as one of your number one priorities. When I
Yeah.
build this building, not only will it look good, but my legacy will be nobody will be
Right.
killed trying to keep this maintained and keeping it look
Yeah.
lovely.
Well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I actually seen a case in Ireland, and it changed the course of the legal attitude or the legal approach towards something exactly what you're saying here. So the judge basically said, when the case had been concluded and they realized who was going to get prosecuted, the judge actually called for the bank statements for the last couple of years of the company,
Yep.
and he he withheld his judgment until he read the bank statements,
Mm-hmm.
and then he basically said in court, "You've produced X amount of revenue in the last couple of years. The proportion now is going to be based on your bank statements." I thought it was like, I don't want to put the fear factor into companies because when they're trying to do the right thing, and
Mm-hmm.
things do happen, and that's another podcast in itself.
Sure.
But I thought it was like, for the guy that was going up on that roof, that was kind of, not set up properly to as a company, you know, really, for the extra couple of thousand or whatever it's going to take to get to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why would you want to sort of squeeze the cost when it comes to work height? There should be
You're
some.
right, and when it comes to it as well. So just take point out the point you made before. I know that I certainly have heard of recent day that not only are they going to look at the accounts of the companies, but they're also going to look at how much profit have you as a director taken out of that company in the last, because
Okay.
that's an important factor as well.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're showing it's making Thrupp and Safety, but if you've taken all that profit out, we're going to base it on that, not on the Thrupp and Safety you've left in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you have Thrupp and Safety in Ireland or in other parts of the world. Thrupp and Safety is what we've got here.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.5 cents or something. I don't know what the equivalent would be.
Tell me the future. Where's are you retiring shortly? Did you tell me you're going to be retiring
I am
shortly?
retiring in a couple of years, yes.
Okay, so anybody who's looking for Peter for a gig, now's the time to get in with him and have a chat with him. Are you looking forward to it, or what's your mindset?
I I didn't think I was going to look forward to it. In fact, to be honest, I haven't even thinking about it. I am thinking about it insofar as I have said to many people on many occasions, your duty as chief executive is to take care of your succession. You cannot say, I'm retired and it's up to you guys, sort yourself out. It's part
Yeah.
of your job and it's part of your duty as a chief executive of an organisation to plan your succession and to basically plan how the organisation is going to go on after you're not there. Because,
Yeah.
of course, I'm never going to find anybody as good as me, but I need to try and find somebody close to it.
No, but like it is very true. Just leave it in the same state. That's it's the next person can bring it on to the next level, and the next person then
Absolutely.
can bring it on to the next level.
Correct.
So you've no real plans in terms of kicking back and sort of
No, no, no. I mean, I think certainly I've said I'm going to, I will hang about for a wee while just in case they need me and to annoy people, no, and just in case they need me for advice or anything like that. But in general, I'm thinking like, I need to let other people have a go at it,
yeah, yeah.
and take advantage of. I mean, I've got 10 grandchildren, so I've got more
Wow.
than enough to keep me going.
Okay. Well, let me throw a few curveballs at you because we're coming to the end of the show, Peter, if you don't
Okay.
mind. Knowing what you know now,
Yes.
Peter Bennett, what would you do different in life?
It's a very, very good question. I tell you what, I would say it took me a while to realise and understand that we, as an industry, we were the biggest part of the problem, and that we could do more to to improve the situation. And I think going back to what I said before about um, the conversation I had with the chap from HSE, and incidentally, well, I remember that as well. At the same time as I was talking to Martin Holden, also in there in the HSE at that time, principal inspectors in policy for work was a guy called Hash Mitra, and following him was a guy called Dave Thomas, both of whom are trustees of the charity, the No Falls Foundation today. But going back to that time, I would never have thought that we could, as an industry, say, you know what, there's a problem here, we need to come up with a solution to it. Everybody just kind of bumbled along and done what they've done and done it. We've done it this way for as long, but to then have that challenge, I just found that exhilarating from an industry point of view to say we have a challenge. How are we going to address this challenge? And I know that within the organisation, with internal access, we put a lot of time and a lot of effort in thinking how can it just how can you come up with an answer to this? Like the guard cannot be there until somebody puts it there. So how do you get it there? And it's only when you think about it, like, well, what about if we put it ahead? What about if we put it in advance? There's the answer. And then you've got to deal with some of the other technical issues. That and other things of that nature. If I had understood before now, or certainly before I did, I would have liked to have addressed problems like that long before we actually got to it.
Okay. And what about a favorite book or movie that Peter likes to go back to? Or
Now then. Favorite books. I actually am going to say that I have two favorite books.
okay,
And the two of them are the extreme opposite ends of the spectrum. Right? So one of them, they're actually set around about the same time. So they're both set around about the early to late 19th century. The first one is the Ragged Trousers Philanthropists. And the Ragged Trousers Philanthropist is a kind of, it's not quite autobiographical, semi-autobiographical, written by a guy called Robert Tressel, that's his pseudonym. And it's set in a fictional town called Mugborough, and it covers the life of a squad of painters and how they, as the title suggests, how they, through their work, actually line the pockets of their capitalist boss, and that's what makes them the ragged trousered philanthropists.
wow.
There you go. And then the other one is one when I was a boy, when I was a teenager, I studied Italian, and one of the things that we studied in the class that I was at Glasgow University. We'd done quite a bit of it was like a literature based one. It was less about conversational language and more about literature. And they introduced us to one that has stuck with me for a wee while, and that's Il Gatto Pardo. Il Gatto Pardo is Italian for a leopard, and it was written by Giuseppe Tomasi, who happened to be the Prince of Lampedusa. And you might have heard of Lampedusa, because Lampedusa is that little island off the coast of Italy where all of the refugees from North Africa go to get which got asylum in the European Union. He was the Prince of Lampedusa, and his Il Gatto Pardo charted the demise of the aristocracy in Italy at the time of what they called the Risorgimento, which was the unification of Italy. And it was just telling it from the other point of view, the aristocracy losing their grip on things, and there you go.
Jeez, Peter, you're so man. I tell you what, we're nearly an hour into this podcast. This podcast is usually 45 minutes for someone that might be going to work in the van, and like they'll basically be still in the van at outside the house.
There you go.
Listen, if people want to contact you, how would they do it, Peter? Like, obviously there's going to be a lot of people who will want to talk to you about.
Get me on LinkedIn. Just look up Peter Bennett OBE. You can email me at peter.bennett@nofallsfoundation.org, and I'll get you either of those ways.
Brilliant. I will put that in the show notes. And look, Peter, we wish you the very best. Thank you so much for all of the effort and the time that you put into the area. It's great to meet someone that actually just stuck in their lane and spent their whole life in, an area. And you don't have all the answers. That's very clear from today's podcast. We're all still trying to figure out this whole epidemic of work at height and injuries from work.
I don't know if I've said it before, Gavin, but we're at a little crossroads just now in the UK, and that is that we've been pushing the HSE for quite some time to improve the reporting system. So you've probably heard that RIDOR, the Reporting of Incident Disease and Dangerous Occurrences regulations. No doubt there's a similar thing in other countries, right?
Yeah.
And it has long been our contention to HSE, listen, your RIDOR reporting is close to useless. And the reason it's close to useless is because you keep asking people to tell what happened in free text. And what you find there is they tell you a wee story. And that wee story is very, very difficult to draw from it. What's the essence of it? What's the cause? How do we compare that with all these other ones? So we've got an opportunity just now because there's a consultation exercise underway into RIDOR. And we have been, as I say, long advocating to them that what they need to do is to simplify that so that basically we don't ask people to tell us a story. That we say, this fall from height, where did it happen? What height was it? What type of equipment was it?
Yeah.
What was the main cause? Was there a guardrail? Was there not a guardrail? Basically, lead them through it to get them to a stage where you don't need to think about this. You just need to tell. All you want to know is what happened. And if we can gather information like that tells us what happened, that is going to be very powerful.
We can shape a better conversation.
Correct. Absolutely.
I'll leave it at that, Peter.
Well done. Thank you, Gavin. It's been a pleasure.
Hang on the line here for us. Don't leave.